From changes to our routines, to physical and even emotional distress, being in a pandemic has affected virtually every aspect of our lives. And while safeguarding your physical health is very much high priority, in what ways can you also safeguard the health of your marriage? Well, in this episode, we're going to share 6 practical things you and your spouse can do to not only survive during this time, but to thrive. Let's go. Hey friends, welcome to the Marriage Inside Out podcast, where we teach couples how to become mission focused, learning to work together as a team to build a solid foundation for their household. I'm Khalil, and this is my wife, the lady of the house. You all may know her as AJ, but I call her Adrian.
Yes. What's up, guys? Excited for this discussion today.
I know, man. I think of that line from the song by Marvin Gaye, "What's Going On?" Like, it's just, as we know, there's so much going on in the world right now. I mean, we're in the middle of a global pandemic, unprecedented times. COVID-19, I feel like it's been one of the hashtags of the year 2020. And yeah, I mean, not only that, it's, we've been in a time of also social unrest in our country. And I mean, we know so many people who are going through so much right now. And obviously, as we think about how, this pandemic has affected life as we know it, it's obviously affecting, the way we do life in marriage, and in family. And I think it's necessary that we just dive into this and talk a little bit about it, talk about the challenges that are in front of us, and really just how we can overcome them to, not only survive through this time as couples, but really how to thrive through it.
Yeah. And I mean, the nature of it, right? In the midst of the pandemic, we're homebound in many ways. So that means you're spending more time with your spouse, more time with your children, more time with your pets. Or, if you are in a season and listening to this podcast, you might not be married and you're striving to just find ways to connect with others, right? It's affecting us all in different ways as you're sharing.
Right. And I think one of the most challenging aspects of it is that, there's really no foreseeable end date to this. I mean, in some, states such as the one in which we live, I mean, cases are spiking and again, and, there's kind of this whole cycle of things open for a bit and things starting to close for a bit again. And so
roller coaster.
Exactly. And so, but I think there are a number of specific ways in which this pandemic has affected married couples. I mean, I think about obviously the changes in our routines.
Right.
So, more couples and more families are spending more time at home, working from home, and things like that. It's affected obviously couples financially, and I know some people have really been hit hard, whether you're, been working from working in an entrepreneurial sense, or even working in a salary position. It's affecting people job security wise. It's obviously had an effect on parental responsibilities and parental roles. I know some of you all watching and listening, may have had to homeschool your children and take on that load and that responsibility. It's also hindered plans and caused people's plans to be canceled, whether it's, weddings, people having to do, weddings in their backyards, or having to cancel vacations. I mean, we had to cancel a vacation trip that we were supposed to take. Exactly. And then, I mean, obviously in an even deeper way, I think the fact of the illness itself affecting people and affecting people's relatives, and maybe even some of you have experienced loss in your family because of this. So many things, and I think most of all, just the uncertainty of what is ahead.
Right. And I mean, we've had friends that have actually had babies, new babies, first-time parents in the midst of the pandemic. We've had, friends that have had to postpone and adjust wedding times, friends that are experiencing job loss. So we are leaning in with total empathy for whatever season you're in, and we hope that these 6 tips that we share will help you at least keep that focus within the family.
Right. And I think, even just sharing a little bit about how it's affected us.
Right.
I mean, we've been in the boat of having to work from home.
Yes.
For the past
3 months.
Seems like 3 months is crazy, right?
Yeah.
And I know, it's affected our workloads. I know for you especially.
Yeah. Workload spiked up for sure.
Yeah.
And that leans into what is work-life boundaries, balance. Right. What does that look like? How do you turn it off? Especially if you're, my computer is on the dining room table. Mm-hmm. So I just close it and push it to the side, or I could choose to actually put it in my bag. Like I just got home from a work day.
Right. Because when you work at another location, if you have an office that you go to, it's like what I've noticed is that when I leave the office, that's like kind of the end of the workday. Like that simple act of going to and from work, puts it within its boundary, right? Mm-hmm. But when you're working from home, it's like, okay, when does the workday end?
Exactly.
It's kind of left to
nebulous.
Your discretion. Yeah. But regardless, I think one of the things we have to remember is that we have to reframe our perspectives, mm-hmm. right? We have to reshape really how we see this time, because it can be easy to look at this as a nuisance, right? Mm-hmm. Like, when are things going to just go back to normal? But instead, this is really a time, for all of you couples out there to become even more mission focused.
Yes.
That's something that we constantly strive to encourage.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone that we know in is becoming mission focused and intentionally developing new ways of being together as a couple, right?
Yeah.
And even if need be, just to take this time to just reset.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go ahead and dive into some practical applications. Mm-hmm. And we're all about, getting to the practical application. Like, what is it that, we can do? What is it that you can do during this time in order to thrive through it? And so 6 things that we want to share here. And Wonder Woman, you want to kind of kick us off with this?
Yeah. The first is to go back to the basics. Mm-hmm. That's just stewarding your physical health. That includes your nutrition, your exercise, your sleep, all of those areas. And it can honestly feel daunting, overwhelming. Sometimes when anxiety rises up, it's a lot harder to sleep, or maybe you start to binge eat. There's a lot of things that are affected by our environment that cause us to not steward those areas well. So we want to encourage you to just go back to the foundation in your marriage. How can you make one small change, maybe each week, right? One little shift. Maybe it's just buying a few more vegetables for your family and mm-hmm. adding them to your lunches daily. Some carrot sticks for the kids, right? Those little things will have a long-term impact.
Right. Because when it comes to times of psychological distress and anxiety, those are usually the first things to fall off.
True.
Right?
And in order to steward those things well, you do have to give up some stuff, some things. Right. If you're constantly working all the way until the sun goes down, it's hard to get up and go for a walk, right? So you might need to prioritize a midday walk if that's your normal schedule. Mm-hmm. How can you shift things around a little bit, especially because most of us are centered around, working from the house or in and out of the house with our family at home most of the day, while whoever is maybe an essential worker and working in various ways. So,
right.
Yeah. Right. Our second tip is to make sure that you have personal enrichment time, mm-hmm. right? And that is time actually apart from each other in marriage, but just like self-reflection time, whether that's digging deeper into your relationship with Christ, whether that is working on your physical health, but you just need to have your headphones in with the podcast and do it on your own, right? Those moments are so important because, I know for us, because we both are working from home, we're kind of with each other 24/7.
Yes. Yes. Lots of together time.
I'm not going to dive into how that makes you feel, but I think there has been some tension, some tiredness to that, right?
Yep.
To an extent.
Yeah. Obviously, I love my wife. I do. I enjoy spending time with her, and it's always refreshing, yet I've also understood, and I would say just relearned, the importance of making sure that we each have those personal times,
right,
to recharge individually, so that when we are together, I mean, the time is even greater.
Right. So. Well, and I'm a little chatty too, so I'm sorry about that. Thank you for listening.
It's all good. Yes, we're learning, we're growing through this time. Yes, that's good. And the next thing is to, whenever possible, to change up your environment. So, for us, one of the things that we did was, we've both been working from home, and we started off working in our own little sections of the house, right? I was, in the downstairs area, and my wife was in the upstairs office area. And so what we decided to do, even just couple weeks ago, was we decided to switch, where I'm now working upstairs, you're working downstairs, just to have something fresh. And especially in these times where, we're kind of having to be at home a lot more, just to switch up your environment as much as you can. And not only that, to do things like even getting outside. That's something that we learn very quickly in this process, is that how easy it is to, go through the whole day and not even get outside. And so even something as simple as, I know for us, like, we try to in the morning go outside just for a little bit, just to breathe in some fresh air, get a little bit of sun. And at time points during the day, we'll try to just step outside for a little bit. And so it's important that we just get in new environments. Right.
And that environment shift is so important because it gives a renewed perspective. So even trying to walk a different route when you're going for walks outside, or maybe it is kind of each day of the week you have a different room that you're working from with your laptop, because that helps keep things fresh and new for you. That's so important.
Exactly. And the fourth thing is to remain connected with others. And we felt like this is a really big one because, in times like this, it's easy to let ourselves to get isolated, to get isolated in the house and isolated in what we're doing. But, we have to stay insulated, not isolated. Stay insulated, not isolated. Leaning on others even, to help you get through this time. The something we often like to say is that the race is better when we run together. And so, even think about who are the people who are around you. Is there anyone that maybe you haven't reached out to in a while, whether friends or family? I think even during this time, you can even evaluate who it is that surrounds you, because maybe there are some people that you've been in contact with that may be a little draining to you right now, or maybe they're causing more anxiety upon you right now. And maybe those are some people that you need to distance a little bit. But I know for us, we've been striving to just, have those FaceTime calls with, the parents and with the siblings and family members and with friends. And I mean, it's just been really refreshing whenever we've been able to do that. So definitely can't take the relationships with others for granted.
Yes. And then our fifth tip is to continue casting vision. Right? Many of us started off with goals for 2020, expectations. We're about 6 months in at this point in time. If you had those expectations and that mission for your marriage, for your family, keep them going, keep dreaming, keep growing, set those next steps that you want to continue to build. And if you didn't establish those goals up front, what better time to start than right now? Right? There's no better time. There's not going to be 6 months down the line, that's when I'm really going to get started. Now is the time to go ahead and step into that new venture. Go ahead and try out and experiment in this different area. Go ahead and walk by faith with something that you've been wanting to pursue for a while. We just want to encourage you in that. Continue casting vision.
Right. And, we even did an episode talking about the importance of goal setting. Right. We're putting that up. There's a link at the top of the screen right now that you can click on to watch that. But just that simple practice. This is a time where we can really hone in on some of those things. And I know for us, just the simple act of starting this podcast, it was something that we had a vision of doing for a while, and we kind of kept putting it off. But we got to the point where we say, you know what, we got to just do it. And even if it doesn't look perfect, it's not meant to look perfect.
Right.
Sometimes you just got to take that step.
Right. And we also had, the opportunity to buy a used car for Khalil, and actually, because we were focused during this time, we, will have paid it off, at the end of next week. So, I mean, those little victories, those little steps, because we set the goals, we made it plain, we wrote them down, made them visible, and we continued one step at a time.
Right. And just a quick story about that. So, before the pandemic hit, I was planning to hold on to my car, the car that I had a 2002 Ford Explorer. I mean, it had over 230,000 miles on it. It was old faithful, but I was hoping to hold on to it. But, we got to a point where we realized, like, okay, it probably wasn't safe to really drive the car anymore. It was on its last mile. So we were faced with a decision where we pretty much had to get a new car for me right before the pandemic really hit hard. This was in March. And so, got the car, but we said, you know what, let's go ahead and pay this thing off as quickly as possible. And by the Lord's grace, hey,
here we are.
There we
go.
Yes. And then last but certainly not least, the sixth thing that we really want to mention here is just continuing to date.
Yeah.
And just to make fun moments overall. I mean, I know you use that term dating. You might be thinking, well, restaurants are closed right now. I can't really do that. But really, it's just to make fun moments and whatever that looks like. And we are all in a position as married couples where we kind of have to recreate or maybe to rethink what that looks like.
Keep the spark going.
Exactly. And I mean, that could be, having dinner on the porch. Like that's something that we did was have dinner on our porch. We did it. We've done it a couple times.
Play some nice music.
Right. Some of our neighbors have done that as well. Some good friends having dinner on the porch. Couple other things, is just taking a drive.
Right.
I mean, something that seems so trivial, like taking a drive, but I mean, especially being in the house, all that goes back into that changing your environment. Sometimes we'll just get in the car and you really like
I love riding and his new used car, that's like my favorite.
Play some music. Yes, enjoy that. You could even do things like take a dance class online and you and your spouse dance in the house, like watch a YouTube video on how to do salsa, take a salsa lesson, or you could even do a cooking class online. We've even have one, there's a link coming up right now if you want to learn how to cook a roasted beet salad, for example. We did a video on that, but that's just something simple that can help to create some of those some of that newness and fun that we all need during this time.
And a date doesn't have to be that official planned moment. There's spontaneity, there's joy, and just making something happen, right?
Exactly. And I know that for some couples that this really can be a challenge, right? Especially those who have children. We definitely want to be sensitive to that. Yet, it is possible to do that as long as you set it as a precedent.
Exactly.
Want to cite something that I saw from a clinical psychologist from NYU by the name of Dr. Linda Carter. She works with a lot of couples, and she recommends that for couples who have children who can't be left alone, that they've used the time after the kids are asleep to spend together.
And that's actually what our good friends Mike and Lloyda mentioned when we were discussing with them on our last podcast episode about how they're able to keep things fresh in their marriage, and they really, prioritize that time after their son goes to bed to just converse and spend that quality time with each other, which is amazing.
Yep, and they dropped a lot of good wisdom nuggets. We're putting a card up right now if you all want to go check out that conversation. But yes, I mean, we know this time has affected some couples in very heavy ways. Yet, again, we just really want to encourage everyone listening and watching that though this time may be challenging, and though you might feel like you're on your last bar of energy, like you can't really go another day of this, just know that this really is your opportunity to even be transformed in this moment. That there is a reason for this, and that this really is a time for all of us to become better, to become stronger, for you and your spouse to become stronger as you go through this together. And just to remember that this time, though we might not see an end in sight, that it is temporary.
Right.
So to keep pressing forward and to just keep enduring and knowing that those who thrive the most in any aspect of life are those who know how to adapt.
Yes.
And know how to adjust. And so this is a time where we're all learning how to adapt and to adjust. And so just be encouraged, continue pressing forward, and know that we're running with you in this.
Exactly. And we're here for you no matter what season of life that you may be in. So just as Khalil was sharing, every step of that way, you are capable of adapting. We know that there is purpose for your marriage, and we know that this present season is not the end all. So let's all collectively run alongside each other and go beyond even what we physically feel like we can do on our own, because we can't do it with our own strength.
That's right. That's right. That's good. All right, friends. So as we wrap up, our question of the day for you is, what is one thing that you and your spouse have done to make it through the current pandemic? And specifically, what's maybe a fun activity that you've done, or maybe a new venture that you've gotten into, or maybe a habit that you've held to that has really, helped to get you and your spouse through this time, keeping the joy, keeping the fun. We would love to know in the comments below.
Yeah, and we are so grateful that you guys have been tuning in and supporting. If you want to stay connected, of course, you can like, share, subscribe. Go ahead and ding that bell if you're with us on YouTube. Subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening in from. And you can also head over to marriageinsideout.com to join us for our monthly training focused on goal setting. 5 tips to help you attain realistic goals.
Yes, and thank you all again for tuning in. And until next time, remember, your marriage has a mission. And what the Lord has brought together, let nothing and no one separate, not even a pandemic. Love God and love one another. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.